Welcome to the Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Along with Miss Lakeena McGee, I am Sidney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidK80. Once again, it's SidK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Where is the Apple Store or the Google Play Store? Wherever you get your apps, make sure it says Sports Zone Chicago. Download the app today. You can watch and listen to our programs, current shows, past shows, and all the latest news from the sports world. So make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app. So, and speaking of Sports Zone Chicago, you can follow us on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search for Sports Zone Chicago. Once again, search for Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can listen to the audio version of this podcast, Second City Sports, you can by simply going to War on Anchor, which keeps you on the Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and that iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in those search engine boxes, WARR on Anchor, and follow the guys at War Media at WAR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, at War Media, that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends. Subscribe.
Yes, and if you want to leave a comment on our during our show today on our thoughts and opinions and the questions of the day, you can do so by searching for Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook and on YouTube. Post your comments live in the chat, and Lakeena will get them on the air for you. That's our number one rule. Whether you agree with us or not, make sure your comments are respectful. If you're here to troll or be stupid, Lakeena will give you the boot politely.
Hey, everybody.
We haven't had that yet. Hopefully, we won't have to do that. So, but we trust you guys. You guys have been great to us so let's keep the conversation moving. Lakeena, let's start off with some baseball. The White Sox are at a season high, 20 games above 500 with a 76-56 record. After taking 2 or 3 games from the cross-time rival Chicago Cubs, they defeated the Cubs on the side yesterday by the score of 13-1. They won the first game on 17-14 football style fashion before being shut out by the score of 7-0 on Saturday. Yesterday's game, Lou Bob, aka La Pantera. Yes, it's Luis Robert for those of you scoring at home. He knocked out 2 home runs yesterday. AKA the next Big Kirk, AKA the Big Baby, AKA he's also known for as you kids would say his government is Eloy Jimenez. He knocked out a 2-run shot yesterday. And Jose becomes the first 100 RBI man in Major League Baseball. He tallied a couple of RBI yesterday during the blowout loss. Lakeena, let's review the series, starting out with Friday's game. Dallas Keuchel, as we told you guys over the last month and a half, he's not going to be a starting pitcher in this rotation come playoff time. His spot may be in question whether he gets on the playoff roster or not. We'll get into that more in detail in just a moment. But he gave up 6 runs in the first inning. The White Sox came back, scoring 13 unanswered runs, including a third inning, which is one not to forget. And before the Cubs start coming back, Lakeena, as we well know, this is the healthiest the Sox has been in terms of offense up and down the lineup all season long. They showed that on Friday. It disappeared on Saturday, which we'll get to in just a moment. And, of course, it returned on Sunday. But, Lakeena, going back to Friday's game, as a fan, it was amazing. The Cubs, as we well know, they're struggling. They don't have the horse like they did to start the season. They traded everybody away. Their best pitcher was Kyle Hendricks, who was beat yesterday. But going back to Friday's game, you could sense that Tony La Russa thought that this team would come back. That's why he pulled Dallas Keuchel in the middle of that second inning there. The offense woke up after they took advantage of some Cubs mistakes, i.e. McDuffie. And it was on from there. And the White Sox offense, as we told you, has been hit and miss all year. They can hit with power with the best of them, but they cannot generate any runs when they don't have any power. But the power returned on Friday. Yasmani Grandal, in his first game back, belted out 2 home runs on the way to the 17-14 win on Friday night.
Yeah, it's interesting because, that Friday game was a little bit crazy because, Keuchel gives us 6 runs, and I think his spot, I think, in the rotation for the playoffs is in jeopardy, no doubt, because of the fact that he hasn't had a good outing the last month and a half. We'll get to that in a little bit. Now, as for the good news is that the Sox were able to come back from that and made an interesting game. 17-13. I think that's a football score if you want to think about it. But look, I mean, the White Sox just didn't have it on Saturday, and on Sunday, they were able to kind of jump on Kyle Hendricks pretty quick. And look, I think this is sort of one of those ebbs and flows. I mean, we told you guys on Friday that, don't be surprised if the Cubs win one of these games. Now, the Cubs could have won two. Mm-hmm. You could have lost 2 out of 3, but you were able to come back from the Friday's game. Didn't have just didn't have it on Saturday, which happens. And also, too, by Sunday, like I said, the bats, jumped on Kyle Hendricks, and they jumped on him pretty early and often. So for 7 runs, and Robert did it twice. Yeah. So I think for me, this whole thing, with the White Sox, I think congrats to Abreu, who became the first, like you said, the first major league to reach 100 RBIs, mm-hmm. and just a nice. This is sort of what you want if you're a Sox fan. They had a tough start. On Friday, they were able to come back and win it. That was probably one of the crazier games we've seen all season for both teams. And, I think that this is sort of one of those things where, through the season, you're going to see that, okay, you're going to have, quick starts. You're going to get jumped on early. And, unfortunately for the White Sox, you can't really do that in the playoffs against the Yankees or the A's or teams like that. So, we'll figure that, we'll see that once they get to the playoffs. But, I think if you're the White Sox, I think, you know what? You did a good job. You win 2 out of 3. You win the crosstown series 5 out of 6. If you're the Cubs, look, you played with pride. Alec Mills has his best outing in a while. Just keeping the Sox at those Sox batters at bay. And it jumped on Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn easily had his worst start of the season. So you just gotta keep going with it. So, but if you're still in a tough spot if you're the White Sox, regardless. So it's fine.
You're listening to Second City Sports right here on Sports Zone Chicago City, Lakeena with you as we review the crosstown series between the Cubs and the Sox that took place this past weekend on the south side. The White Sox take it 2 out of 3. If you want to comment on the series, what you saw in the series, you can do so by going to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube pages. Post your comments right there, and Lakeena will get them on the air for you. And stay tuned for our question for the day. You'll love this question of the day for you White Sox fans that are listening and watching us out there. Lakeena, let's review Saturday's game. Of course, you mentioned it. The Cubs shut out the Sox 7-0. I was there in the park. Lance Lynn, he didn't have it after the second inning. He left a bunch of pitches up in the middle of the plate. Patrick Wynn, who had a birthday on Friday, who had 2 home runs in Friday's loss. Mm-hmm. He had a couple of home runs in Saturday's win, and Rafael Ortega had a big grand slam to kind of put that game away. Lakeena, I don't want to panic and I don't want to overstate this, but we talked about Lance Lynn's last start last Monday in Toronto, and people wanted to talk about he made a big mistake to Vladimir Guerrero Jr., which turned out to tie that game, and of course Craig Kimball's wild pitch led to the game-winning run for Toronto. But you just hope that Lance Lynn is going through a tough stretch. And I just hope that he didn't carry that bad feeling from when they started to last Saturday start. You just hope that that's a blow. That's how I'm looking at it right now, just a bump and roll. He still leads the American League ERA with a 2.30 earned run average. I'll be honest with you, Lakeena. Alec Mills, I know he has a no-hitter to his resume from a couple of years ago. I didn't think he had his great stuff, but congrats to him on the win. I just felt like the Chicago White Sox were pressing too much. And this is what happens when you build your all-around power here to miss team. And this is what happened. I thought the White Sox were impatient. They were trying to force the issue. I know what they did the previous night, but it just wasn't meant to be on Saturday night. And I thought they were pressing, and they put too much pressure on themselves trying to get back in the game. And Alec Mills realized that, and he had the perfect pitches to get the Sox hitters out.
Yeah, I think he clearly had his best outing, I think, since that no-hitter. And he had a couple good starts early in the season. But, yeah, I mean, these are mostly like AAA Iowa guys you're facing right now for the Cubs. So, look, they put up the fight, and they kind of, Wisdom's kind of been sort of like the unsung hero of the Cubs this year, especially after everybody got traded. We'll get to some former Cubs that are not doing too well in their new teams in a second. Again, we'll get to that in a minute. But I think if you're a Cubs fan, I think you want those building blocks kind of build up for, I'm sure you're going to have their struggles next year, and we'll see what happens after that. But you've got Wisdom, you got Ortega, you got some guys you can build upon. And who knows if they do start signing people again. We don't know what the Ricketts family is thinking at this point, but it's just going to be very interesting to see what direction the Cubs decide to go in the offseason. But again, what I don't think you could easily say, oh, it's going to be an easy win. I mean, the Cubs, they showed that, look, you throw the records out the window when these two teams play, because they're always going to be a fight. And we saw that fight on Friday. The Cubs, dominated, on Saturday. And, of course, things kind of went back to normal. But look, I think if you're a Cubs fan, I know it's not looking good right now, but you should be encouraged.
And, of course, yesterday's game, the 13-1 win for the White Sox. Lost in all this was Dylan Cease. He pitched a masterful game through 6+ innings and struck out 11 batters. Of course, the offense, as we mentioned, woke up. Luis Robert with 2 home runs. Eloy belted out a home run. Yasmani Grandal belted out another home run again. A Yaz bomb. And Jose Abreu becomes baseball's first 100 RBI man. Lakeena, we take advantage of Cal Hendricks, who's clearly the best pitcher on the Cubs team. We take advantage of pitchers' mistakes. This is what happens. And through this series, as we look at it, if you observe it correctly, this is the potential that the White Sox can going into the playoffs. As we said before, we'll keep it again. You're not going to score 8-9 runs a ball game come playoff time, because you're going to face the 2 best pitchers from the other teams. Okay, the question is, can you take advantage of the other team's mistakes? Can you get timely hitting? And because I believe that the White Sox will get great starting pitching. Now, their bullpen is still in question, and we'll dive into that a little bit in a minute. But this offense has the potential to make hay in the playoffs. Don't expect 8-9 runs a ball game, because that's not how postseason runs work during the playoffs. But the White Sox can potentially be dangerous come playoff time if that offense can match, which we hope can be great starting pitching.
Yeah, and I think that's what you want. And hopefully, hopefully we can get sort of like, you got a good pitcher. You got Lynn. You got to think Lynn's going to be number 1. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Rodon's number 2, maybe Giolito's 3. I don't know, but you've got a good showing there. And I think Keiko might find himself out of the playoff roster if he doesn't get it together these next couple of starts. So, it's sort of like, okay, you can afford to have those games that they had on Saturday, and then just, burn that tape of that game and just move on. And look, I think if you're the White Sox, like if you're Tony La Russa, this is your first rodeo doing this, so you're in a good spot, and you just got to wait and see. I mean, just hopefully, you can kind of get it together. But if not, I mean, you've got other guys in the back end that can help out and eat innings. That's what you want in the playoffs. So again, we'll just have to wait and see.
You're listening to Second City Sports live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sidney and Lakeena here with you. What's your thoughts about the Crosstown series? Were you impressed by the White Sox? And what were your thoughts, if you're a Cubs fan, what were your thoughts about the series overall? You can post your comments on our comments page, on our Facebook page, and right here on YouTube. Just search for Sports Zone Chicago. Post your comments up. Lakeena will get on the air for you. Now, question of the day for you White Sox fans listening and watching out there. As we mentioned during the last several weeks on this show, Lakeena just brought it up a moment ago. Lance Lynn will be a Game 1 starter. Carlos Rodon, who's going to pitch this Wednesday against the Pirates in a 2-game series, he's your number 2 starter as of right now. Who's your number 3 starter? Is it a given that is Lucas Giolito? Or after his outing yesterday, will it be Dylan Cease? That's the question I'm throwing out to you guys out there in our viewing and listening audience. Who should the Sox number 3 starter be once the playoffs start right now? Lucas Giolito or Dylan Cease? You can post your answers on our comments page, on our Facebook at Sports Zone Chicago, and on our YouTube page at Sports Zone Chicago. Who should it be for the number 3 starter for the Chicago White Sox? Lucas Giolito or Dylan Cease? I'll start with you first.
Oh gosh. Like I said, I think maybe Giolito because I think he got a little taste of it last year in the playoffs. So he wasn't very good for the when he starting against the A's, but I think he's earning another shot for it. I know Keuchel, like I said, Keuchel has been having his issues, so you hope he can get it together. But I just think at this point, if you asking me, and it's August 30th, 2021, I think I really firmly believe that I think Giolito. I think Giolito should be the number 3 guy, but again, this could change. Ask me again in 2 or 3 weeks. So it's just like we'll have to wait and see. What about you?
I will go with Dylan Cease. Here's why: because he has the best stuff on the staff. As you mentioned, Lakeena, going back to a couple of starts, he didn't have his greatest against Oakland in that series finale a couple of weeks ago on the South side, but he did enough to keep his team in the ball game. But his last starts, double-digit strikeouts against Toronto, and then what he did against the Cubs yesterday. Dylan Cease has turned it around. He's finally gotten it together. He's actually been consistent around the plate. And Tony Russo could trust him to maybe go close to 100 pitches. He did that a couple of times with them early in the year. But Dylan Cease has finally stepped out. I believe he has 11 wins on the season. He perhaps get to maybe 13, 14, maybe even 15 wins before the season concludes. But right now, I'm going with Dylan Cease. He has the best stuff perhaps on the staff. He's been in control of the 2 out of the last 3 starts, and he's been consistent. So I'm going with Dylan Cease as of today.
My only worry about Cease is that he have one of those starts where he gets like 7 or 8 runs, and then the Sox are in the hole and they're not able to get out of it. That's my only concern with Cease. And that probably wouldn't put him. Yeah, but you know what? It's okay. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, we still got a lot to do left in the season, so this could all change. This could all interchangeable, I should say. So we'll see what they can. We'll see what they can do. We'll see maybe if they can either Giolito or Cease or maybe Keuchel can recover and they can play their way into the playoff rotation. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and let's go to that bullpen for the White Sox. I know Liam Hendriks pitched yesterday, looked good. Craig Kimbrell did not look good on Friday. Actually, that was one of the reasons why the Cubs got back in the game. Ryan Tepera pitched yesterday. He looked good. Ever since his first couple of outings in the Sox uniform, he's turned it around. Jose Ruiz actually looked good yesterday. Lakeena, as I said before, I'll say it again. We'll have to wait until Friday's show, but talk to me, ask me again, who should the closer be for the Chicago White Sox? Will it be Craig Kimbrell or will it be Liam Hendriks? I know Hendriks currently leads the American League in saves, but Lakeena, as of right now, as I heard a few people throw out this possibility, I want to get your opinion on this, and along with our viewers and listeners, should it be situational as far as who closes for that day, or should Tony La Russa go with one guy? Because time is running out here, because when we next talk to you guys, which will be Friday, we'll already be into early September, and wherever roles that need to be filled out, they needs to be filled out quickly, because you don't have that much time left. A month can go by just like that. By the time we get to October 3rd, the regular season is over. It's time to gear up for the playoffs.
It'll be interesting to see what happens there about the bullpen. Like I said, the bullpens had their issues. Look, I mean, Tepera's been really solid, and Bummer's been sort of. So I don't know what to think. I don't know if you want to have. Do you really want Bummer in your playoff roster? I know La Russa wants to stick with him, but it's going to be interesting to see how he does in the rest of when he actually has to kind of keep leads or preserve leads, I should say, for the bullpen. I know Kimbrell's got the playoff experience, so you got to think he's going to be the closer for right now. But I'm sure Michael Kopech is going to make a case for it too. So again, it's all these are sort of like the good news is it's all interchangeable parts. So ask me this question again in about another 2 weeks. We got about 5 or 6 weeks left, like 5 weeks left in the season. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But yeah, it's going to be, like I said, ask me this question again. My answer might change.
Speaking of Kopech, he looked good yesterday. Gary Crochet's looked good in his last few outings. So could Gary Crochet be that backup eighth inning guy, or could he be the front runner for the 8th inning guy? Who knows? But he's looked good in his last couple of starts. And we said about Michael Kopech, he has looked good during the month of August. He looked good yesterday, and so hopefully that he could seem to be consistent. And the only thing about that bullpen is consistency, Lakeena. Let's just hope that in the case of Craig Kimbrell, that is fatigued and he's trying to get used to his new role, and hopefully he can turn around here as we approach the month of September.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's talk about some of the stuff we're going up against the break. But what impressed you the most this weekend in MLB?
Like you said, I know we're going against that at the bottom of the hour, but we'll have to continue this on the other side. The New York Mets. I know they took care of business against the Washington Nationals, but unfortunately, if you're a Mets fan, that's not the big story. Javier Baez and Francisco Lindor, who's been struggling all year. Of course, the Mets acquired Mr. Lindor from the Cleveland Indians, soon to be Guardians as of next year during this past offseason. Lindor has been hearing it from the fans all year long. Though he's been injured and whatnot. And Javier Baez, same thing. As he made a big boom in the Mets uniform, he's been hurt. He's been back for the last few games. Javier Baez yesterday did the thumbs down after the fans, Mets fans, booed him. And he was trying to say that it was an inside joke thing, him and Lindor trying to cover it up. And after the game, Javi Baez had one of his kids up at the podium saying the same thing. And, of course, Mets ownership tried to cover up by saying that we backed the fans and this was ill-advised behavior by the players. It's just a big old mess. Lakeena, we talked about this before. So the health of Jacob deGrom, their starting pitcher, so goes the Mets. And look what's happened over the last month or so. They're still about 5 games out of 500. They still, for the grace of you know what, they're still in the thick of the NL East race. Atlanta has a runaway with it, along with Philadelphia. We'll get to those two teams on the other side of this break. But the Mets just keep shooting themselves in the foot, and it looks like it's not going to get any better anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, I guess, Javi's realizing that he's not in Chicago anymore. And, Mets fans will always find a reason to always, boo their guys. I think DeGrom was supposed to start yesterday, but he tested positive for COVID. So that, unfortunately, that was the last thing the Mets needed. So it's going to be very interesting to see. But again, even despite that, the Mets are still right there in the division. So they're kind of within striking distance. I know that they've kind of had their issues too. They were able to kind of salvage their series, winning a couple of games, like you said, Sid. But I mean, look, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, there's going to be a lot of, no one wants to win that NL East division apparently. So nobody they're playing hot potato. I know Atlanta was able to salvage their series against the Giants. They were able to, they lost to what they shut out the Giants 9-0, and Philly lost an opportunity to gain a couple of games, but they were they swept they were able to win 3 out of 4 against the Diamondbacks, but they're still right there. But they've got a pretty all these teams have to play each other these next 5 weeks, so it's going to get decided finally. So it's going to be very interesting to see how these teams sort of match up, because if you look at their schedule, I don't have their schedules right there, but Atlanta, they got the Dodgers this, starting tonight. They have a 3-game against the Dodgers. So, if you're Philly, if you take care of your business against the Nationals, hopefully maybe you can get back into the swing of it and get in control of that division. We don't know. So, excuse me. So we'll see what happens in that division. But I think if you're the Mets, all this distraction. I know Sidney Alderson, tweeted that we love the fans and such, but it's just that right now I think the Mets they have other issues to worry about and bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, last point on the Mets before we break for the bottom of the hour. I was listening to the fan in New York earlier this morning before we started our show today, and a couple of calls that I heard on that topic, they were pretty upset. And I know the culture is like the city of Philadelphia. When you win, everybody likes you. When you lose, when you win, everybody loves you. When you lose, everybody hates you. But for the Mets, if you're a Mets fan, you have every right to be upset, because your team was basically in control of the NL East all season long, and then the injuries to DeGrom and a couple other guys started happening. And at the trade deadline, he made this big boom of a move for Javi Baez. He came in and made a big impact, and next thing you know, he gets hurt, and then Jacob deGrom gets hurt, and next thing you know, your season's going in the toilet. So if you're the Mets, it's all mental, and I don't know if I have enough to recover. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, that was Syndergaard, I should say, that tested positive for COVID. He was actually supposed to came back for a start yesterday, but you saw what happened there. But look, I think as far as this thing with the Mets, I mean, I think if they were in first place, I mean, this whole thing wouldn't be an issue. But since they're 7.5 back in the NL East, I think that's why now it's becoming a big problem. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. So I guess we'll finish up the baseball, but we are going to talk football. Injury. We'll talk Bears, of course. Justin Fields looked good against the Titans. A lot of injuries in the National Football League, including some contending teams suffer some key injury losses, and the Cleveland team that seems like they're snake bitten. But again, we'll talk about it coming up on the other side with Sidney Brown. I am Lakeena McGee. This is Second City Sports, and you're listening to Sports Zone Chicago. And we will have more. We're going to have more. Finish up the baseball talk. We'll also talk some football too. So stay right there.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. In Sunday's Major League Baseball action, the Cubs got pounded 9-1 at home against Kansas City. The White Sox shut out on the road 9-0 at Tampa. NFL preseason on Saturday, the Bills hammered the Bears 41-15. Andy Dalton, 11 of 17, passing 146 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Justin Fields, 9 of 19 for 80 yards. Head coach Matt Nagy says Dalton remains the Week 1 starter and that Fields is ahead of schedule.
When you look at a guy like Justin and you see the things that he's doing, are there some things that he can get better at? Yeah, for sure. That's going to be, we're going to say that 3 years from now. But at the same point in time, for him, there's also things that he's doing better probably than we thought coming into this, which is good too. Like, that's what we want. We want that to happen.
Download the free Score app. Lightning fast updates so you never miss a thing. It's why the Score app is one of North America's most popular sports apps. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Blue Star medicated ointment works fast to relieve the pain and itch of almost any skin irritation.
It's amazing. It's like as soon as you put it on, you can feel it working. We've had Blue Star in the family for years. It works on everything.
I love the cooling sensation on my athlete's foot.
What a relief for my eczema.
Nothing worked on my dry, cracked skin until I tried Blue Star.
Blue Star is great for scalp itch.
Look for the white box with the Blue Star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast, or your money back.
Want to hear something amazing? Discover matches all the cash back you earn on your credit card at the end of your first year, automatically, dollar for dollar, with no limit on how much you can earn. Extra cash? Come on, how amazing is that? In fact, it's even more amazing when you realize all the places where Discover is accepted. 99% of places in the U.S. that take credit cards. So when it comes to Discover, get used to hearing yes more often. Learn more at discover.com/yes. 2021 Nielsen Report. Limitations apply.
Welcome back to Second City Sports. We're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone. Sidney and Lakeena here with you as we'll talk about the Chicago Bears win over the Tennessee Titans in their preseason finale in just a few minutes. We're wrapping up our baseball talk. We have the question of the day for you White Sox fans for this hour. Who should be your number 3 starter if the playoffs started today? Will it be Dylan Cease or will it be Lucas Giolito in your mind? Place your comments in our comment section on our Facebook page or on our YouTube page at Sports Zone Chicago. We'll post your comments and we'll get them on the air for you. Lakeena, let's continue with our baseball discussion from the best and worst from the weekend. Lakeena, we met by the NL East. Let's go to the NL West. The San Francisco Giants, as you mentioned, did not have a good weekend, losing 2 out of 3 in Atlanta. But the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Dodgers, they lost 2 out of 3 to the lowly Colorado Rockies. And they have a big series against the Giants coming up this coming weekend. But first, they got to host the Atlanta Braves for 3 at Dodger Stadium. But the Dodgers had a golden opportunity to creep up a little bit closer in the NL race, and they failed to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, the season, especially when you're trying to catch up, I think those are the last things you want. They just didn't really have the bats. The bats didn't get going. They were shut out yesterday, and it was just it was just unfortunate if you're a Dodgers fan. I actually know some Dodgers fans, and they were not very happy because they didn't gain any ground on the Giants. But again, this is their chance to do it tonight. Starting tonight, so they got a 3-gamer, so it's going to be a huge series. And look, you don't want to say this is huge. I mean, I should say tomorrow, starting tomorrow, but this weekend I should say. But this is huge. I mean, you get Atlanta if you're the Dodgers. You kind of put them away. If you're the Giants, you have the Brewers. That's a big series. For multiple reasons. So it's going to be very interesting. These two series are going to be intertwining. So can the Dodgers sort of creep up on the Giants as they meet this weekend? So it's going to be this should be a very good series, but again, we'll wait and talk about that on Friday. But not missed opportunities by the Dodgers to sort of catch up, but it's fine.
Yeah, let's head over to the American League. Of course, the AL East. The Boston Red Sox lost a 4-0 lead to the Cleveland Indians yesterday before the Indians came back and won. The New York Yankees, they split the 4-game weekend series by the Bay with the Oakland Athletics. Oakland losing the first 2 games of the series before coming back and winning on Saturday afternoon. And then, of course, on Sunday Night Baseball last night, coming back in the 8th inning there. Lakeena, I know the people want to give the Yankees a slight edge in terms of one of the dangerous teams to look out for come playoff time. I'll say this: the lineup is good. We saw that against the White Sox a couple weeks ago, but I'm not sure about their bullpen. I'm not.
Yeah, the bullpen.
And who's going to step up starting pitcher-wise outside of Garrett Cole?
Yeah, I mean, the bullpen's been sort of like the deterrent for the Yankees these last couple of games against Oakland. Lost a couple of chances there to try to catch up, and also too their bat sort of just didn't kind of let them down. But again, the good news is that the Yankees, because you're still in the top in the AL wild card, so that sort of helps a little bit. But I think they feel as though they still have a chance to win that division. They're 6 games out right now, but the problem is that the Rays have won 7 in a row, so that's going to be tough. But again, granted,
it's Baltimore.
Yeah, I'll say Baltimore. Yeah, so they swept Baltimore, so that's helped them. But they have a big one against the Red Sox starting tonight, and it's gonna be very interesting to see if they can kind of pad their lead. And if you're the Yankees, you better try and kind of get back into it, sort of get back into the groove, because you won 13 in a row, I should say, and then you lost a couple. You switch your series against the A's, so you continue your West Coast road trip against the Angels. So we'll see if they can kind of try and kind of play catch up in the East now. Well, okay, with Central, of course, the White Sox will win the division. I think their match number is like 27 or something like that for the White Sox. Houston looks like they're starting to pull away a little bit. The A's have, like I said, they were able to split their series with the Yankees, so they're within striking distance. A tough series though for the Mariners, so you gotta wonder, are they kind of like starting to sort of kind of take that downward spiral? But again, we'll see. In the AL wild card, that's really going to be where the battle is. So we'll talk about that in a second. But wrapping up our baseball discussion, I mean, look, the East is the AL East, the NL East, I should say, is still very interesting, and we all know the West. That's going to come down to that series. I think against the Giants and the Dodgers coming up this weekend. We'll talk more about that, but again, I think the wild card is going to be where the real battle is going to be.
Yeah, sticking with the AL wild card race. So of course, Toronto took 2 out of 3 from Detroit this weekend, so they're still hanging on. As you mentioned, Tampa Bay has been on a roll. That's actually one of the teams that I don't want to play via the White Sox in Oakland as well. But sticking with the AL wild card race, like you said, Seattle, they avoid getting swept by Kansas City. Salvador Perez, 38 home runs. It looks like he's going to hit close to 45 when the season's over with. Excuse me. If it wasn't for Shohei Ohtani, do you think that Salvador Perez will be the front runner for AL MVP? I would say Jose Abreu, but Abreu's average has not been up to par, so that leaves him out. But Salvador Perez, he had one heck of a series in the Pacific Northwest last weekend.
Well, and also too, the Royals were a little bit better. Usually the AL, especially kind of tends to kind of stay away from guys that are not in winning teams. So even though Perez's stats are you can't really argue, but the problem is that the Royals are not very good. So that's probably why. Also too, that guy Shohei Ohtani, that guy over there that plays for the Angels, that's kind of and also the other guy too that plays up north in Toronto. That's Vlad Jr.'s had his struggles lately, but I think you wish he did have more pub, but again, I think it's more the team aspect of it. So
what before we go over to football, what a couple of series that sticks out in your mind as the baseball resumes tonight? What couple of series that you're looking on the schedule say that this could turn out to be the pivotal series in terms of a playoff chase?
Boston and Tampa Bay, like I said earlier, I think Boston's trying to stay within distance in the wild card, and also too, Tampa Bay trying to kind of like pull away in the East. Of course, the Yankees and the Angels. That's always interesting when those two battle it out. Also, too, Milwaukee and San Fran. That's a big
series. I'm looking forward to that.
That's a big series. Big series for many reasons. Atlanta and the Dodgers we mentioned earlier, again for multiple reasons, and also too Houston and Seattle. If you're Seattle, you're trying to kind of get back into the swing of games in that wild card. So that way, the three teams ahead of you, the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the A's don't leave you behind. So if you're Seattle, you get them at home, the Astros, and you kind of been playing them pretty well this season. So this is your chance to kind of make a dent into that. Kind of take off not only in the AL West, but also too in the AL wild card.
Real quick on the Milwaukee and San Francisco series, those are the two best teams record-wise in the National League. As we said on the show before, and I said this in our last episode on Friday, Milwaukee is the poor man's Chicago White Sox in the National League. This series is important because Milwaukee, I know there's questions up there from some of their fan base discussing, saying that can they beat good teams? Well, San Francisco's been there all year as a surprise team in Major League Baseball. Of course, they're not going away, and they have excellent starting pitching and timely hitting. And these two teams basically mirror each other. But this series is important because whoever has home field advantage, that will probably win the National World Series. So I think this series is bigger than what people give it credit for. I think whoever, despite what happens in the series, between those two teams, whoever gets home field throughout the NL playoffs will probably represent the National League in the World Series. Don't you think? Because people still want to give the Dodgers a shot, okay, but the Dodgers have not been the Dodgers this year due to injuries. And whoever comes out of the NL East, do you trust them to get hot come October as of right now? No.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't. Yeah, I'll say I think the Dodgers are sort of the team if they end up going into, assuming that they don't get. I still think the Dodgers will end up winning the NL West. I just have this feeling that once they get everybody, they're starting to get everybody back, and once their pitching is still trying to figure out there. So I think they will get it together. Plus, you guys are seasoned veterans, so I think they will get it together. The Milwaukee, I'm still not sold on. They'll end up winning the division. And we'll see what happens in the playoffs. They may stick it up. I don't know, but we'll just have to wait and see. So let's go to the gridiron for for the segment, Sid. We'll start with the Bears first. The Bears win their final preseason game against the Titans 27-24. Justin Fields played most of the game, maybe most of the first half. He threw for a touchdown. It didn't really have, wasn't a Justin Fields like performance like some people thought it would be. We didn't really see too much of him. Like I said, they didn't really show that much, but there's always this, this battle that maybe he should be starting week 1 against the Rams in a couple of weeks. But, again, we just don't know we don't really know. I think the whole QB1 thing with Dalton and everything. But what's your thoughts on this? And we've been talking about it for like the last month, it seems.
As I said on Friday, head coach Matt Nagy is actually doing this correctly, and I said one of the reasons why that Justin Fields won't start the season because to play on the offensive line. Now, the couple of highlights that I saw from Saturday, they didn't look that great. I know as a team, the Bears only rushed 21 times for 65 yards, I believe. But pass protection is going to be key, obviously, and that's why you brought in Jason Peters from Philadelphia. I know he's a 39-year-old off the scrap heap, and hopefully the Bears could get something out of him. But until the offensive line establishes continuity, I'm not putting Mr. Fields in there. He's your franchise quarterback. You got to have the pieces around him in the best situation possible for him to start developing and start winning. He is your franchise quarterback. There's no doubt about it. You want to have the best situation possible for him to come in and succeed. Now, looking at the offensive line, this isn't it. Now, the running game can improve. I know David Montgomery basically didn't play this preseason. Khalil Herbert looked okay, and I know Damian Williams is going to give as a running back. But the offensive line is what concerns me. We talked about the special teams the last couple, especially with our guy from War Media, Kyle Means. And the special teams actually did something great with Lakeena. What I saw they didn't turn it over, and actually had a couple of decent kickoff returns. So that unit still has some work to do. But going back to the defense, Lakeena, I know they had a return interception for a return for a touchdown Saturday, but the one thing I'm looking forward to this year is can they get a consistent pass rush without blitzing? That's my number 2 concern as the Bears will start their season, and like I said, less than 2 weeks at Los Angeles against the Rams of a national audience. Number 2 concerns for me, the offensive line, and will the defense bring quarterback pressure consistently without blitzing?
Well, I think the whole thing with the O-line, I think that's going to be the number 1 thing. I mean, if you want to put that O-line, with a couple of young players. I know Whitehair's a veteran, and Fetty is probably like the most consistent guy. Do you really want to put him, especially at 39-year-old Jason Peters against Aaron Donald? Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Yeah, have Justin Fields start running around. I know. Look, we know he's very athletic. We know he's very fast. He can run the 40. But again, I don't. Do you really want to give him a chance to be right there against Aaron Donald? Aaron Donald's not in a very good mood, like I think we could assume. So I don't think you want to do that. So look, at the O-line is a concern. The defense, that front seven is older. I'll say that they're all just about everybody on that roster on that front 7 is over 30. You got Goldman, who didn't play last year. Nichols, he's had some injury concerns. Also, to Khalil Mack, people forget he had some injury issues too. Those knees have been bothering him, so I don't know how's he going to look. Robert Quinn, all that money, and we haven't really heard a thing from him. I mean, Trevathan, we'll see how much. Trevathan, we'll see how much he has left in the tank. Because I think he's 32 now. I think he's had some injury problems as well. Also, your secondary, I mean, Jalen Johnson, showed some strides last year, but again, he got banged up too later in the season. Will that be an issue too? Tashawn Gibson, very solid young safety. Eddie Jackson, you hope that the shoulder and the elbows problems that he's been having, that doesn't become an issue too. Kendall Vitter, I mean, look, I like what I saw, a little bit from the preseason, a little bit those last couple of games, but do you really trust him to be kind of that sort of like that the replacement for Kyle Fuller? I don't think so, but again, that's just me. But Sid, what do you think?
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakeena here with you. A question for this segment for you Bears fans out there: who should start Week 1, Andy or Justin Fields? Place your comments in our comments section on Facebook at Sports Zone Chicago, or on YouTube, just search for Sports Zone Chicago. Place your comments in the comments section, and Lakeena will get those comments up and going displayed on our screen for those of you watching us on YouTube Live. Lakeena, that defense, as I said, concerns me. The secondary, I know Eddie Jackson, he has a New Jersey number this year, number 4 for some reason. But I think, will the secondary live up to his billing? It can't live up to his billing from a couple of years ago if you don't get a pass rush. If you don't get a pass rush, your defense is taken apart. And so as the secondary goes, so goes the pass rush. If you don't get a pass rush, your secondary can't do much else but get left out there alone in the island.
And I think that's not what you want. I'm sure if you're the Bears, but again, we'll get to all our previews and stuff. On Friday, we'll get more in depth. But who's going to be the number 2 receiver after Allen Robinson? Will it be Mooney? Will it be Goodwin? Who you guys picked up and who the Bears picked up? How about the running game? Will the running game will be used? I mean, David Montgomery. I'm sure he's going to want the ball more. You got Damian Williams too, has a Super Bowl ring, who's got a lot of experience and who can kind of help out, sort of, move the chains, hopefully. But, again, he's had some injury issues too. So, you kind of wonder how much he has left in the tank. I mean, he's 29. So you got to think that that's sort of when, the running back position in the NFL you start kind of going to downward spiral. Once you hit 29, so we'll see how much he has left. But again, like I said, we'll do our records and predictions and stuff on Friday. But I'm seeing a barely 500 record for the Bears. Again, that's just a tease for me. But we'll see.
I'll give you my record on Friday, but for the Bears to be successful going forward, it depends on when Justin Fields gets into the lineup. Whether it be week one, which we doubt is going to happen, whenever that time comes, whether it's the third or fourth game of the season, or will it be after that? We just don't know. But whenever Mr. Fields gets in there, I believe this Bears team will take off. You'll start to see signs of what the future can bring for the Chicago Bears team. Now, as far as Andy Dalton is concerned, you want him to be healthy. You want him to give you something, whatever that is. Hopefully he doesn't turn the ball over. He's not mobile, and that's why I'm still worried about that offensive line, especially when you want to indulge Justin Fields into that lineup. We know Andy Dalton, as we said before, Lakeena, he's not a mobile quarterback. He hasn't been a mobile quarterback. He's not going to change now. And with the way the offensive line has been shaky at best throughout this preseason due to injuries and inconsistent play, if Andy Dalton starts to run backwards, you really are in trouble. And that really the plans further back for Mr. Fields to get on the field.
Yeah, that's going to be sort of the thing, especially when your O-line is not helping. So that doesn't help your cause. So, we know that, look, Dalton's never been a mobile quarterback, never has, never will be. And that's okay. But again, when you have a bad O-line and not a very mobile quarterback, that's recipe for disaster. So we'll see what happens. Again, like I said, if you go to their first, we talked about their first, 4 games of the season when we'll see Mr. Fields. I mean, you got Los Angeles, of course, the Rams, of course, Sunday Night Football. You got Cincinnati. I know some people are already, marking that as a win. That's not really a game. I mean, that's a pretty good Cincy team. I think had Joe Burrow not gotten hurt, who knows? They probably would have challenged for that, that second wild card spot in the AFC, I believe. Cleveland, a lot of people are picking them to be a Super Bowl pick for the AFC. Again, we'll see. Maybe Detroit. I mean, maybe we'll see Detroit. I mean, that was
my game. Yeah, we discussed this with Kyle on Friday's show. That's my game. The Mr. Fields will get in that Detroit game.
Also, you got Vegas, of course. Also, too, on the 17th of October, you get Green Bay. So again, we just don't know what the Bears are going to be. They could be 2-1. They could be 0-3 by then. Who knows? Or 1-2. So I don't. We'll see what happens there. But I just at this point I just don't. I'm. Let's just say I'll put my records up on Monday, but on Friday I should say. But it's going to be very interesting though. No doubt.
Yeah, it will be interesting. Let's just say that if Andy Dalton stinks it up, but the Bears' record is at 500 or above, do you still leave them in there? Do you?
I'm doing the shrugs emoji. I don't know. I'm doing the shrugs emoji. I'm doing the shrugs. Like, I don't know. Do you put? I don't know. Do you? It's just we know how we know this whole promise that they made. They're paying them $10 million. QB1, blah blah blah. But again, we just don't know what the mindsets are going to be at this point.
We don't. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live in living color. Sidney and Lakeena here with you. Lakeena, we have just a couple of minutes left before we take our end of the hour break. Did you watch the rest of the preseason finale? If so, what impressed you?
I saw a little bit of it. Usually, by the last preseason game, I kind of tuned out. I wasn't watching that much preseason anyway. It's a sort of like I always keep an eye on what's going on. But I think Jerry Horsted has played. Jesper Horsted has played his way into a roster spot. I know he had 3 touchdown catches. I guess so. I guess the Horsted game. I guess that's what people are calling it. I mean, he had a decent game. But like I said, you're playing against guys that are just trying to get into their roster. So look, I mean. Look, he's a Princeton guy, so we know he's super smart. So again, this is sort of let's not get enamored with someone that can catch the football. So I think, look, can put him in the roster. I mean, in the practice squad. I mean, he could probably be kind of look. The Bears already have about 100 tight ends already, so I think that's just another thing. But I mean, he had a really nice game. But like I said, I was kind of tuning in and out with some of these preseason games, but. Those are really, really standouts. I mean, I know Trey Roberson had a nice game for the Bears, and again, these are just these are guys that are just trying to make their way into the playoff roster. I mean, the main roster for the season. That's basically what these guys are doing. So again, you really don't invest in those last preseason games, whether it's for the fourth one or in this case the third one. So it's really, okay. These are great stories, but I think that's the only reason why you have these last preseason games. But it's fine.
Yeah, we saw some starters in the last preseason game, which is the third one this year. Cam Newton looked okay as the Patriots faced off against the New York Giants. Mac Jones got the majority of the snaps. He looked good. I know Bill Belichick was asked, have he named his starting quarterback yet? Of course, Bill Belichick, you've known him for the last 21 years. He does not tell you anything. And as I said on the show before, it's going to be Cam Newton because that 7-9 record from a year ago is sustained on Bill Belichick's record. He does not want to have back-to-back losing seasons. Yes, he may like Mac Jones in the long run, but in the short term, with everybody, especially the defense, is coming back from New England, or they traded Sony Michel away, they're running back to the LA Rams due to their injury problems. But Bill Belichick desperately does not want to have a back-to-back losing season. Last time he did that was when he started coaching in Cleveland almost 25 years ago. So, I believe it's going to be Cam, but if Cam gets off to a bad start, COVID or no COVID, Bill Belichick will not hesitate to pull the trigger.
Well, we all know that. I'm sure a lot of the Patriots fans are looking for a reason to pull Cam, so we'll see what happens with that saga. Some of the I think really the big story for the NFL, these last couple of weeks has been injuries. J.K. Dobbins for the Ravens, he was primed to have a great year, that offense, but also unfortunately he tore his ACL against Washington, and there were a lot of folks, some Ravens fans were already saying, how could John Harbaugh put him out there? And I said this, look. He could have hurt himself in a non-contact injury at practice because we've seen that happen before. So I think Ravens fans are emotionally, I know they're upset, but, they've got a nice running back depth. Hopefully, you got Todd Gurley still out there, so maybe they'll give him a look, eventually. But I think right now, I think they understood that, that some Ravens fans are upset. But again, injuries happen in the NFL. Now, really, the one team that's really suffered a lot from the injury bug is the Colts, because T.Y. Hill is now having lower back problems and neck problems, and now Sam Tevy, who was one of their top O lineman guys, he's done for the year with an ACL injury. So and I think I just saw like Carson Wentz and I think a couple other guys are COVID protocols, also to Quinn Nelson as well. So yeah. This is just, this team is just snake bit right out of the Colts. I mean, it's just like, is there anything that can go wrong or can't go wrong how you look at it for the Colts? I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, thank goodness I'm not head coach Frank Wright. It doesn't matter how much you pay me. This is stuff that's just beyond your control, but somehow, somewhere, you got to overcome it and get your team prepared because they have the Seattle Seahawks on opening day. And it's not easy for the Colts. I know they were picked by some to be, one of those surprise teams coming out of the AFC this year. They thought that with the move of Carson Wentz, they could perhaps become the next team to be a Super Bowl contender, perhaps challenge Kansas City. Right now, it's not looking good, but we'll see what happens with the Colts in these next couple of weeks. The sooner that Carson Wentz and Quentin Nelson will both of them battling injuries, the sooner they come off the COVID list, the Colts' chances of making the playoffs, perhaps in the long run, the chances, the better their chances. Now, before we hit our top of the hour break, the San Francisco 49ers, I know Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo played in their last preseason game last night against the Las Vegas Raiders. Of course, Lance had the majority of the snaps. Lakeena, I think the same thing is going to happen in San Francisco like it is here in Chicago. Jimmy G is going to start, but it's going to be a short lead. You could tell that they want Trey Lance in there from the word go. But if Jimmy Garoppolo stinks it up in these first couple of weeks, Trey Lance is in there for the long haul. That's how I see it.
Well, and I love the fact that Kyle Shanahan has taken a cue from his dad because, well, actually, I think his dad, I don't think Mike had any big issues, with having to worry about starting quarterbacks. But like you said, Sid, I mean, you look at their schedule, they got a not really a tough schedule. I mean, they have the Lions. We'll see how the Lions look. on the 12th. We'll have the Eagles again. We'll see how the Eagles look. Big trade for the Eagles. We'll talk about that in a bit. Then they have the Packers and the Seahawks. So they've got a pretty tough schedule coming out of the gate. And if Jimmy G struggles against any of those teams, he's gonna get the hook, and Lance is gonna be out there. So, and if you're San Fran, I mean, you've had a lot of injury issues last year that kept y'all from kind of going to the promised land, if you will. So you made some pickups, and hopefully, you drafted Trey Lance. I know that was Kyle Shanahan's guy, so we'll see. I mean, you got to think he's going to be in a shorter leash than Cam is, Jimmy G, I should say. So we'll see.
And your thoughts on the trade of Gardner Minshew from Jacksonville to Philadelphia? I think it's a good one for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you need QB depth. I think you need someone there that kind of that knows that particular offense. And look, again, I don't know how much of a leash Jalen Hurts is on, but again, you got Minshew that shows some flashes, but again, I think you got extra QB. I think that's what you want, and I know Joe Flacco, I know he's not ready to hang it up just yet. So, I mean, that's gonna be very interesting though in Philly, because I mean, who's gonna be the starter if Hurts isn't very good, or God forbid he gets hurt. So, okay, how about Teddy Bridgewater gets the starting job for the Denver Broncos?
As we said before, Lakeena, Vic Fangio's in his third year. If you don't win in your third year, you'll be getting a pink slip and link card. So that's why it has been made. And Drew Lock he did show some signs last year, but he's not quite there yet. Teddy Bridgewater, the same thing happened with him in the Carolina uniform last year. He started out okay, he started out hot, and then he kind of fizzled out at the end. So if you're the Broncos, let's see if Teddy Bridgewater can start off hot and stay hot.
Absolutely. So let's see what else sort of NFL wise. Of course, Trevor Lawrence, had a nice outing though in the Jags last preseason game. Of course, he got the start. I mean, big shocker. Yeah. So anything else sort of in the NFL before we take our break that kind of that caught your eye?
I'm just glad that the preseason is over. I know the regular season starts next Thursday, and then, of course, less than 2 weeks, we'll have the first Sunday of the NFL season. I cannot wait. So this season should be exciting. It should be exciting.
And also, right before we go to our break, we'll have our predictions. Hopefully we'll have some guests on to talk some NFL to kind of get you guys ready for the season coming up. Hopefully we can get a pick-em thing with our folks, from right here in Sports Zone Chicago. And also you guys can be a part of it too. So again, we're kind of in the early stages on, but hopefully we can get that going. So that's it for the first hour of the show. And an hour two, we're talking, the week 0 of college football. Also, some big things happening in tennis, and some big playoff and golf. And also, some sports media news that could be some game changers. Listen to Second City Sports, along with Sidney Brown. I'm Lakeena McGee. We'll catch you on the flip side of this break.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. In Sunday's Major League Baseball action, the Cubs got pounded 9-1 at home against Kansas City. The White Sox shut out on the road 9-0 at Tampa. NFL preseason on Saturday, the Bills hammered the Bears 41-15. Andy Dalton, 11 of 17, passing 146 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Justin Fields, 9 of 19 for 80 yards. Head coach Matt Nagy says Dalton remains the Week 1 starter and that Fields is ahead of schedule.
When you look at a guy like Justin and you see the things that he's doing, are there some things that he can get better at? Yeah, for sure. That's going to be, we're going to say that 3 years from now. But at the same point in time, for him, there's also things that he's doing better probably than we thought coming into this, which is good too. That's what we want. We want that to happen.
Download the free Score app. Lightning fast updates so you never miss a thing. It's why the Score app is one of North America's most popular sports apps. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Blue Star medicated ointment works fast to relieve the pain and itch of almost any skin irritation.
It's amazing. It's like as soon as you put it on, you can feel it working. We've had Blue Star in the family for years. It works on everything.
I love the cooling sensation on my athlete's foot.
What a relief for my eczema.
Nothing worked on my dry, cracked skin until I tried Blue Star.
Blue Star is great for scalp itch.
Look for the white box with the blue star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast or your money back.
Want to hear something amazing? Discover matches all the cash back you earn on your credit card at the end of your first year, automatically, dollar for dollar, with no limit on how much you can earn. Extra cash? Come on, how amazing is that? In fact, it's even more amazing when you realize all the places where Discover is accepted. 99% of places in the U.S. that take credit cards. So when it comes to Discover, get used to hearing yes more often. Learn more at discover.com/yes. 2021 Nielsen Report. Limitations apply.
Welcome back to Second City Sports for hour number 2 right here on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live and in living color along with Miss Lakeena McGee. I am Sidney Brown. You can follow your show on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. You can catch up on past shows and past podcasts. You can watch the shows, listen and watch your favorite shows live also on that Sports Zone Chicago app. So make sure you get that app today. Speaking of Sports Zone Chicago, you can follow us on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Sports Zone Chicago. Once again, search for Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You want to catch the audio version of this podcast, Second City Sports, make sure you do so by searching for War on Anchor. We're available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in WR on Anchor. And speaking of War Media, you can follow those guys on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WAR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Lakeena, I know this is the most exciting time of the year for you as we kick off hour number 2. I'm sorry that I missed the college football action because I was all Cubs soxed out. I apologize to our listeners out there, but I did see a couple of clips of this. We started locally in college football. The Illinois Fighting Illini, they won their opening game against the Nebraska Cornhuskers in Big Ten play. Congrats to head coach Brett Bielema for the Fighting Illini. It was nice to see crowds there again down there in Champaign, Illinois. They pretty much were in control of that game. I know Nebraska tried to make a late run, but they came up short. And Illinois, I don't know what this means for them going forward in Brett Bielema's first year, but it was nice they got off the schneid with the win against Nebraska. Now, Nebraska, this is the first time since 1977 and 19 that they lost back-to-back season openers. And I believe this is the first time in school history they lost an open game in the month of August.
Yep, you are right. And they just don't have the personnel right now. Adrian Martinez is probably the one good player that they had. A lot of the other good players that they did have transferred. So, you're in a tough spot if you're Scott Frost. You also have an NCAA investigation, hanging over their heads. Of course, what happened with the pandemic, them practicing when they weren't supposed to. That kind of explains why they wanted to play. They were lobbying to play. I think that kind of explains why.
College sports. What else is new?
Yeah, true. That's true, right? But I think that they just don't have the personnel right now. He's already on thin ice there. We got Trev Albert, who actually won a national championship with Nebraska. He's now the new AD. He's been there for about a couple of months now, I'm sure. But I think Scott Frost's buyout is like $20 million or something like that. So that's gonna be hard for him to swallow. So if they do decide to give him the hook, but again, we just gotta wait and see now. As far as Illinois, I watched a little bit of that game, and Arturo Stitowski, he looked really good. Had 2 touchdown passes. It looked really. You gotta say that Mike Epstein, who 75 yards, had the lone rushing touchdown for Illinois. It was also their defense, their special teams. They had a couple of big runs to the special teams. So. I think look, if you're Brett Bielema, this is sort of the best start that you have. Now, again, I'm not saying they're going to win the Big Ten West. I'm not saying that at all. But they could definitely at least, looking at their schedule, they got UT San Antonio there. That's the upstart program coming up on Saturday. They could at least get to a bowl game. They can win 5 or 6 games and get to a bowl game. I think that's a pretty successful start if you're Brett Bielema.
There we go.
I'll say unmute. Hello.
Yes. That's what happens when you do these things virtual. You're listening to Second City Sports right here on Sports Zone Chicago City, Lakeena, as we talk college football. Just a reminder for you guys, this Friday, Lakeena is going to give you her breakdowns of the biggest games in college football for the upcoming weekend. Of course, this weekend will be officially week 0 of the college football season for 2021 as fans are back in the stands, and we'll get the extensive Labor Day weekend schedule. So make sure this Friday between 12 and 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, listen to Second City Sports. During the show, Lakeena will start her weekly college football breakdown of key games to pay attention to both locally and nationally. Lakeena, back to what happened this past weekend. Mr. Chip Kelly is certainly on the hot seat at UCLA after having a couple of bad seasons.
Yeah, we talked about this with Randy Cross, who's a former UCLA grad, All-American at UCLA, O-lineman. And he said, look, Chip Kelly needs to kind of have a big season here, basically. And look, they're off to a really good start. They beat a Hawaii team that's kind of rebuilding. Todd Graham, who coached at Arizona State for years, was assistant after he was let go, is now back head coaching over at Hawaii. Dorian Robinson-Thompson looked good. He had a touchdown pass. Zach Charbonnet, I think that's a guy that's probably could be, I don't know if Randy mentioned it, but I think he could definitely be a guy that could be sort of, been in the running for the Heisman. He had three touchdown runs, rushed for 106 yards. They looked really good. I think UCLA is sort of one of those teams where, they kind of need to get going. They have a tough one at LSU. We'll see where LSU's mindset is with whatever that's happening down there in the Gulf with Hurricane Ida. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the folks that are being impacted by that treacherous storm. But I think the schedule is there. They've got some tough games. They got to go at Stanford, at Washington. They host Oregon. They got to go at Utah, and of course, their annual meeting with crosstown rival USC, and also to finish up hosting Cal. So they've got a chance now if they could at least get to a bowl game. I think that might help save Chip Kelly's job. I don't know, but again, we'll just have to wait and see.
Just have to wait and see. Now, Lakeena, I'll ask you to do something on the fly. Can you pull up Northwestern's schedule for this year? Okay, the reason why I'm asking that because last year, of course, we all know that the COVID ran rapid throughout the whole sport, both professionally and collegiately. And Northwestern took advantage of that last year. Of course, they lost a close game to the Ohio State Buckeyes in the Big Ten championship game last year. They were led by the defense, but the quarterback was not that great. And I wanted to ask you and to our listeners out there, do you think that Northwestern can have that same performance this year like they did a year ago? I believe they play in Wrigley Field this year, I believe against Purdue. You could correct me on that if I'm incorrect. But Northwestern took advantage of a lot of breaks last year, and they were, like I mentioned, they were close against now their quarterback Justin Fields, then of the Ohio State Buckeyes. They were very close of taking the Big Ten championship overall last year. Do you expect the same success this year, or do you expect them to take a step backwards? Because Pat Fitzgerald, he's a heck of a coach. He's been there for a long time, from back in the mid to late 90s. But I noticed the trend for Northwestern in the last few years, when you have a successful season, you come back to have a downward year. And then when you get a down year, you come back to have a surprise year that no one expects. Do you expect that trend to continue, or do you think they can surprise some people again?
Well, they got a tough one right off the bat. I'm sure they're going to want that revenge against the Fighting Mel Tuckers over at Michigan State. Of course, Northwestern was upset by Michigan State last year, and they got them right there. And you are right, Sid. They do play Purdue on the 20th of November at Wrigley, so that should be a fun one there. They got to go at Michigan.
They might be for a bowl game. They might come down to if they go to a bowl game or not.
Yeah, they got to go at Wisconsin. Wisconsin looks they're primed for a big run. I think and Iowa too. That's going to be a tough one too. They actually host Iowa. They get Iowa at home, so that should help a little bit. I'm sure the folks at Ryan Field are going to be psyched for that game on the 6th of November. But like you said, so I think they more or less benefited from last year that, there was a lot of turmoil with some rosters, and other teams. And, I think some players just probably more mentally just weren't in it. So Northwestern was able to, take advantage of it. Again, we'll see if that trend doesn't continue. They have not had a very good season, just have their struggles. They've got a pretty tough schedule and conference schedule, I should say. So they got Indiana State, so there's no reason why. They host Indiana State in a couple of weeks, so that shouldn't be a problem. Duke's still, pretty decent program, so we'll see what happens with that. But I mean, if they could at least get to a bowl game, I know that wouldn't be that's sort of a kind of a little bit of a step back from last year, but again, with everything kind of back to normal, I'm doing air quotes here, normal.
Yeah.
I think there's no reason why they should at least be, at the very least be bowl eligible and go to a bowl game.
The reason I asked you that because as you mentioned, it's hard to get a read on this team, and like I mentioned before, the defense carried them last year, and it was one of the top defenses in the country. But it's bad, like you lost some guys to graduation. And it's hard for you to duplicate that again. And reading off that schedule, Lakeena, call me crazy. 5 wins, maybe 6 is the benchmark.
Yeah,
you can tell me if I'm crazy.
No, I'm not. No, I think you're right. I think you are. I don't think you're crazy at all. I think you're definitely, you definitely be in the ballpark. And they do end up only winning 5 or 6 games because, like I said, they have a little bit of a tougher schedule. Like I said before, I mean, Wisconsin and Iowa are probably the favorites in that division. So, in the Big Ten West.
So bounce back here. I know Northwestern beat them last year, but Wisconsin's back.
Yeah, I think especially, like I said, now everything's back to normal. I think Wisconsin is trying to kind of win that division. Iowa will probably definitely have something to say about it too, but I think Northwestern, I just don't see it. Now, again, Minnesota, maybe. I mean, but like I said, they lost some guys to graduation and transfer. So, but PJ Fleck will always have his guys ready to play all the games. So, like I said, we'll get to a little bit more on Friday, but I mean, this should be a very interesting season in the Big Ten, especially in the Western Division. Now, it looks like, RLS will probably have, unless something really weird happens and then all the whole team gets kidnapped by, get kidnapped and go into outer space or something. There's no reason why Ryan Day, unless he gets, somehow kidnapped by goes into outer space. But unless that happens, I don't see them not winning the Big Ten East. But again, you never know. But crazy things happen in college football. We know that. We saw that last year. But I think there's no reason why I think Wisconsin and Iowa shouldn't be battling out for the Big Ten West title.
Yeah, if you want to post a comment about college football, what you looking forward to most for this upcoming 2020-21 season? 2021. Say that 5 times fast. You can do so on our Facebook page. Just search for Sports Zone Chicago. And on our YouTube page, just search for Sports Zone Chicago as well. Post your comments, and Lakeena will get them up on the air for you. Lakeena, you mentioned Wisconsin. I think they'll be back for sure, assuming they don't have injuries. Michigan, I know we talked about this a few weeks ago. Jim Harbaugh, as you told me, he got that contract extension. He's been a big disappointment the last couple of years in Michigan. What do you expect from them this year? It's hard for me to get a read on them than Northwestern. At least I think we kind of have a good read of what can we potentially expect from Northwestern. But Michigan, do you still see them as a national title contender? I don't. Maybe I'm in my head again, but I don't know.
I mean, if they can at least get to a bowl game, I think you'll take that if you're Michigan because they didn't go to a bowl game last year. I mean, they have a tough one on the 11th, September 11th against Washington. Although they do get them at home, so you got to think that helps a little bit. That's sort of like a way to kind of get them to kind of get back into that. Michigan. Michigan is back sort of. Situation there. I mean, they got to go at Wisconsin. That's going to be a tough one for them. They got to go at Michigan State, although they did beat, they want to get their revenge last year after losing to them. Indiana, I mean, I think if you're Jim Harbaugh, I think you're okay with this. People are already, leaving you guys out there for dead. Oh, you guys stink. Or you guys are not the Michigan y'all were back in the day. I think they're going to use that as motivation. And, Cade McNamara, is a guy, he's a junior college transfer from Nevada. I think he's sort of someone that he's been wanting to be a starter for a while. So, hopefully he can kind of jumpstart that Michigan offense. And look, I think no one's really expecting them to do much. So I think they might actually be pretty good. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win the Big Ten East, but I think they're definitely going to make it interesting.
All right, let's go to the Pac-12. Lakeena, I believe Utah Were in the championship game last year. I know they were on one of the teams that were on the outside looking in the college football playoff. Do you expect for them to take the next step, or do you think they'll take a huge step back? Because it looks like it's going to be competitive once again this year. I know they were one of the last conferences to get in the season last year due to COVID, but when things, as you mentioned, return to normal, I think the Pac-12 is going to surprise the people. And I don't know if Utah, it's hard to get a read on them, but can they surprise people again this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard to get a read on Utah because it's just sort of like, one year they're good, the next year, they're not, so they kind of disappoint. So, again, we'll see what happens with them. But look, I think Utah could be one of those teams that can kind of like have something to say about who wins that Pac-12 West. I think, look, the West is always interesting in the Pac-12 because you got both the LA teams, you got Utah, you got both the Arizona teams. Both of them are going through some upheaval, whether it's a coaching change for Arizona, the stuff going on over Arizona State with the investigations and stuff like that. That's a whole nother topic.
Shocking.
But yeah, right. But yeah, I think Utah's prime. Look, SC may have something to say about it. I know a lot of people, have kind of let USC, I should say, out there. But I think, look, UCLA, USC, I should say. I keep getting my initials mixed up, but I think USC could probably have something to say about it. I think they've got some pretty good talent coming down the pike. And I think, look, if SC might be the favorite in that division, I think, although Utah may have something to say about who wins it. Maybe UCLA. I don't know. Look, the Pac-12 West is always sort of that's probably the only division where you can kind of like, okay, you can put like 4 or 5, teams in a hat, and then you pull out a team, and then you're like, okay, I wouldn't be surprised if that team ends up winning the division.
I know USC has always had that pressure from their fan base in Los Angeles. I know they wanted Urban Meyer. Of course, Urban Meyer said no. He took his talents to Jacksonville in the National Football League. But USC has not been doing that great over the last few years. We talked about Chip Kelly early in this segment. Do you think that USC has that same pressure on them as well, perhaps even more?
Probably more. I think look, there's always this pressure at USC, right? Because I think, again, they got the talent, but again, do they have the coach? I know Clay Helton is on the hot seat still. I know Mike Bohn, who's the athletic director there, I think he believes in him. That's why he kept him. But SC fans, not so much. So I don't know what's going to happen there. But again, I think if they don't have a good season, I think maybe Clay Helton might be on the hot seat, but again, you never know. But it'll be very interesting. It's going to get very intriguing there in the Pac-12 West.
And one more team I want to ask you about before we move on to your tennis notes, as the U.S. Open starts this week. Actually, they started today. But one more team, and I meant to ask our guy Randy Cross last week. The University of Miami, the U, they were on the cusp of getting to that playoff tournament a couple of years ago. They've been mediocre the last couple of years. They were 6-7, I believe, last year. They were 8-3 in 2020. What do you expect from that program this year? Selfishly, for the entertainment aspects of it, I want them to return. I know they got Clemson in the ACC. I get it. I'm not saying they're better than Clemson. But what do you expect from those Hurricanes this year? I expect them to be better. How much better? I don't know. But I expect them to be better than they were a year ago.
I think they'll be a little bit better. I look, Derek King is back. He's on track to start. So I think that helps a lot. And look, they've got a lot of great talent coming in. They've got a couple of top defensive guys, secondary guys. Look, it's good though. It's gonna be tough for them because they got North Carolina in that coastal division. So that's gonna be. They've got a couple of guys out there. Mac Brown's got his guys playing. They kind of Sam Howell last year. He's one of the top passers in the ACC. So you got it after Trevor Lawrence, but you got to think, he's probably prime. So they're going to have a tough go at it, I think, Miami. I know because injuries, of course, when they lost Kane to injury to the torn ACL, that sort of, kind of put the brakes on their season. So, but again, I think Manny Diaz knows what he's doing. I think they'll be okay, and we'll see what happens with them. Now for me, the district division, the district conference for me will be the Big 12, I should say. You got Iowa State and Oklahoma kind of battling it out, and I think Oklahoma feels disrespected because they've got Iowa State. They got Bijan Robinson, they got Breece Hall. OU's got Spencer Rattler, who all three of those guys you could probably say make a case for them to be right there in the Heisman chase. I think those two teams are going to see that. We'll see how they do it. But I think if you're Oklahoma, you kind of feel like, wait a minute now, we were the big dogs. Until they leave for the SEC. Like, we're the big dogs. Like, no. So we'll see how Iowa State feels the pressure now, because they're not the hunted anymore. People know who they are now. That's going to be sort of thing that's, we're going to see if they can handle that pressure.
Yeah, and speaking of the Big 12, one more team before we move on. The University of Texas, I know they tried to have a bounce back year last year, but Texas football, the Longhorns haven't been Texas in a very long time. Do you expect them to have any sort of renaissance season this year? Or
Well,
will it
remember
be the same sad story?
Well, remember, though, they got Steve Sarkisian, the new coach now, so I'm looking forward. I know Edinger's graduated now, so it's going to be very interesting for Texas. I mean, I think this is going to be a transition year for Texas. I think Texas fans know this. They're pretty smart. They know that this is going to be a transitional year. If they can at least make it to a bowl game, I think they'll take it. But again, we'll see what they can. We'll see what they can do. I mean, like you said, it's basically Sark's going to have to get some players that will play his offense. So again, we don't know what's going to happen with them. So this is kind of a transitional year for Texas, being a new coaching staff and such. Now, again, I mean, Clemson's another team that's going to be in transition. Trevor Lawrence, and Travis Etienne, they're both gone, but there's still some talent there. They got Brian Brisset, who is the preseason All-American on the defensive side. He's leading that defense. DJ, I don't even want to say his last name, but he made some strides last year. Ugale, I think that's how you say his name.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still trying to figure out how to say that man's name, but the guy's name, he's probably prime. He had some looks last year, so I think he's not going to be overwhelmed. So I think that also too, like I said, with Brian Brisset, the defense going to look really good, and so they're still look. They may have lost some of their talent, but there's still talent there at Clemson.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports right here in Sports Zone Chicago City. Lakeena here with you. We have a couple of minutes left before our bottom of the hour break. Lakeena, give us the U.S. Open tennis update. Call me crazy, Lakeena, for asking you this question, but convince me to watch this year's tournament, especially on the women's side. Of course, the Williams sisters will not participate, both the Venus and Serena, due to injuries. Should I even make extra time to watch this?
Well, you got Novak on the men's side. You got Novak Djokovic, who's going for the calendar Grand Slam, winning all 4 Grand Slams. He would just be the second guy to do it after Rod Laver. So that's something to watch from the men's side. Now, on the ladies' side, look, you still got Coco Gauff. You still got the defending champion Naomi Osaka. I find this humorous that people are already saying that, I'm not going to watch because the Williams sisters aren't there, Federer's not going to be there, Nadal's not going to be there, and I just. People already predict it's going to be the lowest rated U.S. Open, and since ESPN got it, blah, blah, blah. I mean, look, there's still some storylines there. There's still players to watch. So you got Ashley Barty, who has a U.S. Open, title herself. So I think people just need to kind of there are storylines there. There is incentive to watch, and then look, I think this is going to be a good tournament, regardless. Now, the rain might be an issue too within the next couple of days, so we got to keep an eye on that. But there's still some storylines there. I mean, it's still, look, the U.S. Open is the final Open of the year. It's the only Open, it's the only tennis Grand Slam here in the U.S., so it's always big. The crowds, it's going to be 100% capacity, I'm sure. I think it's going to be still a proof of vaccination thing, so I don't know how they're doing up there in New York.
It's outside, so yeah.
Yeah, maybe that helps a little bit. It's New York, but I'm sure they're still gonna have social distance and stuff like that. You still gotta wear a mask in the grounds and stuff like that. So there's still reasons to watch U.S. Open. I know the Williams sisters aren't there. Yes, Federer's not there and Nadal, but again, Djokovic is trying to get that career that calendar slam, I should say, winning all 4 Grand Slams in 1 year. You still got hopefully Coco Gauff can break through and. This is sort of when she kind of became the darling, if you will. Hopefully she can make a move there. Also, Naomi Osaka, with everything she's been through, I mean, she's back. She wrote a really nice post over the weekend. Saying that she's back. She's mentally, she's mentally, feel like she's ready to kind of get back into it. The swing of it. So trying to defend her title, which it'll be her third U.S. Open should she win it. But look, the storylines are there, folks. You can watch it. Watch it.
Will do. We hit the bottom of the hour. We had to take this 20-second timeout. Actually, a little bit longer. 20 seconds. We had to take this pause for the calls. When we have some news from the media world and a couple of nuggets from the NBA, and one of those teams involves your Chicago Bulls. We'll get into that and plus a whole lot more. Along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sidney Brown. You're listening to Second City Sports here on Sports Zone Chicago.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago. In Sunday's Major League Baseball action, the Cubs got pounded 9-1 at home against Kansas City. The White Sox shut out on the road 9-0 at Tampa. NFL preseason on Saturday, the Bills hammered the Bears 41-15. Andy Dalton, 11 of 17, passing 146 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Justin Fields, 9 of 19 for 80 yards. Head coach Matt Nagy says Dalton remains the Week 1 starter and that Fields is ahead of schedule.
When you look at a guy like Justin and you see the things that he's doing, are there some things that he can get better at? Yeah, for sure. That's going to be, we're going to say that 3 years from now. But at the same point in time, for him, there's also things that he's doing better probably than we thought coming into this, which is good too. Like, that's what we want. We want that to happen.
Download the free Score app. Lightning fast updates so you never miss a thing. It's why the Score app is one of North America's most popular sports apps. I'm Chuck Sanders. That's the Sports Flash on the Sports Zone Chicago.
Blue Star medicated ointment works fast to relieve the pain and itch of almost any skin irritation.
It's amazing. It's like as soon as you put it on, you can feel it working. We've had Blue Star in the family for years. It works on everything.
I love the cooling sensation on my athlete's foot.
What a relief for my eczema.
Nothing worked on my dry, cracked skin until I tried Blue Star.
Blue Star is great for scalp itch.
Look for the white box with the blue star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast or your money back.
Want to hear something amazing? Discover matches all the cash back you earn on your credit card at the end of your first year, automatically, dollar for dollar, with no limit on how much you can earn. Extra cash? Come on, how amazing is that? In fact, it's even more amazing when you realize all the places where Discover is accepted. 99% of places in the U.S. that take credit cards. So when it comes to Discover, get used to hearing yes more often. Learn more at discover.com/yes. 2021 Nielsen Report. Limitations apply.
Welcome back to Second City Sports. We're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Lakeena and Sidney Brown. As we wrap up today's show with this last segment, Lakeena, let's talk some NBA hoops right now. First, let's start off with the Chicago Bulls. We talked about this in our last episode on Friday. They had a signing trade with Lowry Marketing to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They got a conditional first-round pick in return as part of their three-team trade between Cleveland and Portland. And the Bulls also had the second-round pick, but it looks like they may be to make another potential move. A 15-year veteran forward and free agent Paul Millsap is on the market. A couple other teams, as in the Golden State Warriors and the Brooklyn Nets, are taking a look at him as well. Lakeena, I know we talked about Millsap the last couple years on the show as he was the member of the playing with the Denver Nuggets. I don't think this would be a bad idea if he comes to Chicago to play for the Bulls. Of course, you're not going to give him a boatload of money, but I think he could be a good veteran presence in that locker room, and he could give you some rebounding. I don't expect him to play like he did 5-6 years ago, but if you give him for a mid-level exception or perhaps a little bit less than that, I think he can help this Bulls team as this Bulls team is trying to get back to respectability and perhaps make the playoffs in 2022.
Also, so you got to add the Clippers to that list. That that just came out in the last hour or so. But yeah, I mean, they need a power forward still. The Bulls do, and I kind of feel he definitely fits the bill again. He's 30. He's like 37, I think. So, you're not going to get the same Paul Millsap we saw. Peak Paul Millsap, but he is sort of the guy that kind of, he kind of, like you said, brings that veteran presence. And again, they'll have to. They're actually still under the cap, believe it or not. I know people are a little worried about with the Ball contracts and the DeRozan contracts, but that's actually not. They're actually still pretty below the cap. So We'll see. I mean, like I say, he's going to get interest from a lot of teams. The Bulls, Nets, Warriors, and now the Clippers have shown interest too. So definitely a name to look out for, no doubt. And I'm sure there's going to be other names that we don't know about. So we know how AK never really operates. So they can kind of like sneak in there and see what else they can do. But yeah, so it should be very interesting. We'll see who he ends up picking.
And also, too, speaking of the Brooklyn Nets, looks like they're going to cut ties with DeAndre Jordan. Of course, DeAndre Jordan was brought in along with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving a couple of years ago. Of course, DeAndre Jordan was part of the whole Kevin Durant saga with the New York Knicks. For those of you that don't know the story, DeAndre was traded to the Knicks a couple of years ago. And basically, there were reports out there saying that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were both agreed to go to the Knicks until DeAndre Jordan started complaining about not having enough playing time, and him and Durant are close, and that went the dream of having Durant and Kyrie and both in the Knicks uniform. Of course, both those guys, along with DeAndre Jordan, chose the Brooklyn Nets. Lakeena, DeAndre Jordan didn't play much last year outside the main guys getting hurt. I don't know if he's going to get picked up by anyone at this point in his career. He's been at it a long time. This is the Brooklyn Nets saying, thanks for bringing Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving to the Nets. Here's the rest of your payday left on that contract. Goodbye. Good riddance. Good luck to you.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if he does, get a look at. Maybe the Bulls will look at him. I don't know, but he's definitely going to have to get the veterans minimum at best. So, it's just unfortunate that injuries kind of derailed his career, Jordan. So. Again, but we'll see. I mean, like I said, someone will probably pick him up. Someone will pay him some money, and I think he might. Again, he may do like Rajon Rondo just did, and he's it's been announced that he's going to sign tomorrow with the LA Lakers for about a $2.6 million with a lot of incentives. So it's going to be interesting to see if Rondo. That's going to be interesting though too, like the AARP team. Over there in the Lakers.
LeBron's gonna get mad at you.
I know. Sorry, LeBron, but it's the truth, honey. I love you, but it's the truth. So yeah, it's gonna be very interesting though. But that are there gonna be any? It could be enough basketballs for them. That's like I said, that's the only thing I'm worried about with the Lakers for this season. Is there gonna be enough basketballs for everybody?
It's all about knowing your roles, of course, and with the players they have now. Carmelo Anthony is going to be some nights where he gets the ball and takes over for a game or two. Anthony Davis, he's still the franchise, so he's going to be the number one option. Russell Westbrook, as I said before in this show, and I'll say it again, it's going to benefit him for taking a step back because the last couple of stops in Houston and OKC when Durant left a few years ago, and with Washington last year, he had to basically carry the load and do everything. He should be reprieved that he doesn't have to do that for the Los Angeles Lakers, barring any major injuries. So it's going to. The question is, how long is it going to take for Russell Westbrook to adapt to his role? And Carmelo Anthony, I don't think it's going to take as long because he hasn't been the man on the last few shots that he's had throughout his career. And so the question is, how well and how long will Russell Westbrook adjust to have his new role on the Lakers?
Well, and I'll see what his role is going to be with the Lakers. I think that's another thing he has to think about. So could be very interesting. No doubt about it. And it's going to get a little tight over there in Lakerland. But again, we'll see what happens there. Now, some more NBA news. Again, I think the whole thing, like you said, we'll see what happens. Though, I mean, I kind of feel like. I want to see how there's going to be a lot of attention on this Lakers team, so I'm looking forward to seeing what does happen with that Lakers team because it's going to get very interesting in Los Angeles, I think.
Yeah, it will. Also, too, before we move on, Rajon Rondo, he helped the Lakers win the title a couple of years ago with his veteran presence. I know he struggled with the Clippers last year. I think the Lakers getting him back, hopefully they get something out of him one more time. And I think he's going to help because we all know, especially watching him for that 1 year here in Chicago, he's a strong personality. He has a great IQ for the game of basketball. And we'll see how his personality meshes with Westbrook and Carmelo Anthony's.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be the sort of thing. I think how all those guys going to mesh together, like LeBron and AD and Carmelo and Rondo, and not to mention all the other guys, Westbrook and all these other guys. I mean, it's going to get like I said, Frank Vogel is a veteran coach, so I think he knows what he's doing. But I think it's going to get very interesting. I feel like, yeah, you know what? Let's see how it goes. I mean, if they don't have a quick start right away, it's going to get out of control pretty quick down there over in Los Angeles. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, real quick though, before we go to your sports media news, Sid, did you watch? I know you didn't watch the BMW Championship in golf yesterday, but had a great playoff between Bryson DeChambeau and Patrick Cantlay. I mean, just amazing. Cantlay had to actually nail 18. I think it was an 18-foot putt at 18 to sort of force a playoff with DeChambeau. DeChambeau had plenty of chances to win the tournament. He just missed a couple of key putts. Cantlay had a strike at 18, at 17, I should say, but then DeChambeau came right back at 18, to tie it, to force the playoff, and Cantlay was the aggressive one. And look, Cantlay is a guy he's been around. He's 29. He's been in the top 10 a couple of major. I think the Masters too a couple of times. So, and he's actually now in the driver's seat for the year-end Tour Championship that's going to start this weekend, this Labor Day weekend, to kind of finish up the season. So, just an interesting, a great golf tournament. So if you guys have not seen the highlights of it, make sure you guys check it out. And also too is make sure you check out the Tour Championship this weekend, because it's definitely going to be between them and also Tony Finau, who won the tournament last week, to get him in the driver's seat. So, it's gonna be a fun last week of golf for the PGA Tour this year.
You're Second City Sports right here in Sports Zone Chicago, along with Lakeena, McGee. I am Sidney Brown. We continue to close out the show with our last segment. Before we get to the sports media news, Lakeena, let's go back to the world of the NBA. I read an incredible article by Shams Charania, who's the analyst for Stadium, and he's an NBA insider for The Athletic. And he wrote a very interesting article talking about Ben Simmons, and he's been one of the big-time stories throughout this NBA offseason. And he was talking with a bunch of executives, and most of them told Shams that it's not a matter if, it's a matter of when, WHEN, when Ben Simmons gets traded. And there was a couple of packages out there that could have had Ben Simmons on the move earlier. One of those teams, I believe, was the Toronto Raptors, but the asking price high from Philadelphia. And one name that we brought his name up a couple months ago during the beginning of the offseason was Damian Lillard in the Portland Trail Blazers. I know as of right now he'll play under first-year head coach Chauncey Billups, former NBA champion, former point guard for the Blazers, along with other teams that he played for throughout his career. Lakeena, I know that Ben Simmons, if he's in Philadelphia 76ers uniform by open, I know both sides will do their best to try to confront, but I still don't think that it's a good idea for Ben Simmons to come back. Let's just say if they decide to trade for Daniel, will you get the right value for him? And perhaps you may have to get a third team involved, which is almost difficult to do.
Yeah, that's going to be sort of the thing, that can they get it? If you're Dave, do you want to go to Philadelphia? I mean, is Philadelphia one player away? You're 31 now. You're going to want to go to a team that's sort of like, kind of like right there, sort of like set to make a playoff run. So is he? And also too, if you're Portland, if you're Chauncey Billups, do you think you can, fix Ben Simmons? That's another thing. And I think also too, you probably are going to have to get a third team involved, but who's going to be the third team? You're going to have to get picks. You're going to have to get maybe one of the rookies. I don't know. So it's going to be tough. I mean, it's been tough so far, and we've been hearing this for like the last month about Ben Simmons, getting traded, but it seems like nobody wants him, or Philly's price is too high.
Yeah, if I had to guess right now what happens to Mr. Simmons between now and opening night, I think as of right, Mr. Simmons will be in the Philadelphia 76ers uniform opening night when we reach it in October.
I think so too. I just think that the asking price is too high, and I just don't think a lot of teams are going to want to take a shot at Simmons. I just don't think that's happening.
Speaking of the NBA, as we go into our sports media nugget segment, Mr. Chris Broussard from Fox Sports Radio and FS1, he's been the substitute co-host for their morning show, First Things First, with Jenna Wolfe and Jason Wildes and Nick Wright. Of course, Brandon Marshall, the former NFL wide receiver, one-time Chicago Bear, was the one of the hosts of that show. Now he's an ex. His contract expired last week, and Chris Broussard steps up to take place of Brandon Marshall. Of course, Brandon Marshall will still have his analyst gig over at Showtime for Inside the NFL, and he'll be joined by Julian Edelman, former NFL wide receiver for the New England Patriots. Of course, Inside the NFL this year will be exclusively aired on the Paramount app, and so check that out. And the Chris Broussard is the new co-host for Fox Sports One's new morning TV show, First Things First.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting too. And we'll see what happens. I think, look, there's going to be like a whole lot of maneuvering with the sports media, brand. So it's okay. I mean, I kind of feel like, look, I like Chris Broussard. I mean, I know he said some things that, makes you want to, just want to make you upset. But yeah, I think it's fine. I think, look, that's it's going to be on the app, so it's going to be fine. And look, I think it's going to be, it'll be okay. It'll be fine. Yeah, I just think that this is, like I said, Broussard is pretty solid at what he does. So he's a great NBA insider. So I think the having a show there, especially too with now everything kind of getting back to normal again. Again, I'm using the air quotes here for normal, but it's going to be very interesting though, that show. And it should be a fun show to listen to. And if you got the Peacock app, it's
actually
free.
That's on Fox Sports 1, so that airs Monday through Friday on FS1 from the 7:30 a.m. East, 6:30 a.m. our time. I checked a couple of times. It's okay. I know this is try to emulate the Morning Joe show over at MSNBC for you political fans out there. So it's okay. It actually is done well right before the pandemic for FS1. That show is followed by Undisputed with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp. I know that show's been doing very well over the last few months. So good luck to Chris Broussard. Like you say, he does great work, and he's going to help this show a little bit more. And he still does his nighttime radio show, The Odd Couple, with Rob Parker on Fox Sports Radio. So good luck to him. That show will benefit. That show, First Things First, will benefit from his services.
All right, you got some other sports media nuggets, Sid?
Yes, I believe we spoke on this story a few weeks ago, just in case you guys missed it. Nate Burleson, former NFL player and now former host of the NFL Network's Good Morning Football. He'll officially begin his work on CBS This Morning next week with co-host Gayle King, and he'll still continue his work as an NFL analyst for CBS's NFL Today pregame show. D'Angelo Hall has been doing work with NBC Sports Washington and our good friend, president of media content over there on the Washington football team, Miss Julie Donaldson, for the last couple of. He'll take Nate Burleson's place on Good Morning Football. That's co-hosted with Kay Adams, Chicago's very own, Kyle Brandt, Chicago's very own, and Peter Schrager. That's actually a good show, a football show for NFL Network. I actually enjoy that show.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that they kind of broke up with that because they all four of them had like that great sort of natural chemistry. But you know what? But you know what though? I think he's a great addition to that. You know what? It's going to be very interesting though to see how. But then again, Robinson, Michael Robinson's been doing this for a while, so it's he's going to be he's going to be a good replacement for Nate Burleson. Now, as for him, as for Burleson going over to CBS This Morning, I guess they're trying to do what Michael Strahan's doing over at GMA. That's worked for them and it's worked for him. And Nate Burleson showed that he can actually do more than just sports. So I'm not surprised by this. But again, CBS This Morning has had so many changes over the years, and I just, to get to a point where you're just like, you know what, they just gotta, you just gotta just finish things off. So, look, I'm sure he'll be just fine. He's still gonna do the NFL Today, so nobody has to worry. Don't worry, guys. He's still gonna do that, but. But I'm just a little surprised that they let CBS This Morning went this route. But again, you never know what the execs are thinking. So I don't know.
You're listening to Second City Sports right here on Sports Zone Chicago City. Lakeena with you as we're with you for the last couple of moments for the edition of the show. Lakeena, anything else that's on your mind before we close out?
Yeah, I mean, I think D'Angelo Hall is going to do just fine, and we know he can talk. So so he's gonna be just fine, and they've got some, they got some good talent there, like you said, Sid. I mean, with with Kay and Kyle and Peter. So, I'm sure, look, we don't know D'Angelo likes to talk. We know he's going to be perfect for that, the TV aspect of it. So I know he's going to finally get a good opportunity to kind of, show that side of it. We already know he's got the great personality anyway. What I'm looking forward to this week. Just to see, of course, the baseball, like we talked about earlier, some of those big series we talked about coming up this week. Again, there's actually even some bigger series coming up, later this weekend. So that's going to be, that we'll get to that, on Friday. But, again, the whole Javi saga. I mean, that's also an interesting.
They got a tomorrow against the Marlins, so we'll see what the fans' reactions are.
Yeah, Mets fans, you don't want to take those fans off. Also, the U.S. Open, like I said before, watch it, guys. There's going to be some good storylines outside of that. Now, as far as some of the other stuff, we'll see what the Bears decide to do, if they do anything with the, Justin, if they make Justin Fields the starter, which I don't think they will. I know people have already been asking for it, but that's not happening. Doesn't at this point. But and also too how Hurricane Ida affects the sporting schedules. We know that Tulane was supposed to be playing in Oklahoma, but now they've got to go to Norman to play them. So, whatever, I know they were hoping to have a home field advantage there, but that's not going to happen. LSU, we'll see where their mindset is. They got to go at UCLA. They've been practicing in Houston the last few days because of Ida. So, that's going to be another thing we got to watch out for as well. And that's about it. I mean, just geared up for, we got to get up for our preview set because, we got to see if our buddies, Sean, Maya, and Ivan, if they're going to be willing to do that with us. So
they should.
Yeah, we should. Gotta take it. What are you looking forward to this week, Sid?
Locally in baseball, of course, the Cubs are taking on the Twins. Boo! But for the White Sox, they have a quick 2-game. They're off today. They started a quick 2-game series at home against Pirates tomorrow and Wednesday down there on the south side. I'm not saying the corporate name, but Giolito will go tomorrow and Carlos will pitch on Wednesday. I want to see how both those guys pitch, even though it's against a lowly team. Let's see if the offense for the White Sox continue their hot surge. We saw it over the weekend in that crosstown series win against the Cubs. Let's see if they continue it against a bad Pittsburgh team before they head on the road for Labor Day weekend with 3 big games against the Kansas City Royals. As the White Sox trying to chip down that magic number, which I believe you said it stands at 27 to clinch the AL Central title. A combination of wins and losses with them and right now Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know Cleveland's still right there, for the wild card spot too. So,
and also too, college football this weekend as it gets started, as we reminded you earlier, this Friday and every Friday, Lakeena will give you her breakdown of the big college football games you should look forward to both locally and nationally. We'll get into the matchups on Friday, but I'm looking forward to checking out a little college football, Lakeena, before the big boys start next week. So usually the first couple of weeks you mentioned, you get a couple of softies in your schedule. Depends on a couple of the teams. For your big-time teams, I know Alabama and Miami are supposed to play this coming weekend. We'll get more into that Friday. And so you get those big-time matchups for folks like yours truly who are NFL guys. Get your feet wet for football. As fall is approaching shortly. Football season is here for college football anyways. And so I'm looking forward to the potential big matchups for college football for week 0.
Yeah, that should be a fun one. Like I said, we'll go through the week 0 matchups as we start, on Friday. But yeah, it's gonna be. It was a good weekend. And I know you did a chance to listen to RG3. He did the MEAC SWAC challenge between Alcorn State and North Carolina Central. He did really. I think it's gonna be very Tony Romo-esque. He's gonna be the voice of the family. Also gonna give you some nuggets as well.
I wonder if that's the trend to go, because I know there's a couple of other old time broadcasters that said that they don't like that broadcasting style of predicting what plays are going to happen before it happens. Like you said, Tony Romo is great at what he does for CBS, and as you mentioned, RG3 is taking on that same realm as well. Do you think that'll be the new trend for new analysts, especially football analysts coming up, game analysts coming up?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to see it a little bit, maybe not too much. Yeah.
More.
Yeah, and also too, I'm hoping that they do. ESPN does do a QB kind of podcast, if you will, with RG3 and Alex Smith, and also and also Dan Orlovsky. I hope they do that at some point this year because I think they could definitely benefit from that. But again, like I said, I know like RG2 is going to do just fine, and Alex was going to do fine in his role in the story. He's going to be doing more studio stuff, but I think both of them will do just fine in their new roles.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the ESPN college football coverage as week 0 is upon us here, or will be upon us here this coming week. As we close out the show, we remind you that you can listen to Second City Sports every Monday and every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Once again, noon to 2 p.m. every Monday, every Friday right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sidney Brown. Don't forget to download that Sports Zone Chicago app. You can listen to our shows live along with past shows that you missed. You can also watch us live if you download the app as well. So make sure you go to wherever you get your apps. Make sure you download Sports Zone Chicago. Don't miss anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, too, it's also right there if you miss any shows or any of our shows, Sean and Maya in the morning, Holotech Hall, also to Pressure Luck, and also All Day Football Podcast, and also some of the other shows that are on Sports Zone Chicago. Make sure you go through the Facebook, Facebook and YouTube pages. They're all right there. I see a lot of people have watched that Eric Kramer interview that Sean and Maya did on Wednesday. So if you have not watched it yet, hopefully we can try to get him on our show at some point. It's all right there. Go to the August 25th episode of Sean and Maya in the Morning. It's right there. Like I said, they went a good almost an hour and a half with him. He covered a lot of stuff, so nothing was off limits with him. So make sure you guys check out, and also to all the other previous episodes of all the shows.
Yes. On that note, you can follow yours truly, Sidney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's CK80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Lakeena McGee on the Twitter and Lakeena_me on the IG.
As I mentioned before, make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Download your apps. Make sure it says Sports Zone Chicago. Sports Zone Chicago. You can follow us on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Sports Zone Chicago. Make sure you search for Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Say that 5 times fast. You want to catch the audio version of this podcast, Second City Sports, you can do so by simply searching for War on Anchor, wherever you download your podcast, with Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud, and the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in that search engine box, WARR on Anchor. And you can follow War Media on all social media platforms at WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, at War Media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We have very definite opinions. For Lakeena, I'm Sid. You have been listening to Second City Sports right here on Sports Zone Chicago. We will see you on Friday. Don't forget, Lakeena's first Football Friday for college football as we get you set for the week ahead in the college pigskin world.
All right, Sid. So, stay safe, everybody. If you're not going to get vaccinated, wear your mask, wash your hands, and be good to each other, and stay cool out there. And also, too, thoughts and prayers go out to the people who are being affected by Hurricane Ida. So, you guys stay safe out there. For Sidney Brown, I'm Lakeena McGee. This is Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you Friday.
Till then, holla!